curtain fringe is hard for you, then stick around. I'm gonna be showing you a really easy way of connecting curtain fringe into a layered cut right now. In today's video, we're gonna be using the SilkCut Pros by Olivia Garden. These are 6.5-inch shears, and these are really awesome for taking bigger, longer sections, and it really helps me with creating that perfect design line. This is Osley, and as you can see, she has a lot of hair, but it's finer in texture, and it's a little bit more heavy around the bottom from the old framing. And then you can see these little bits around the face, so I actually want to make them a little bit more pronounced, that she has the option to leave those pieces out when she pulls them back, and it also can frame her really nicely because I really want to showcase those gorgeous eyes of hers. So we're actually going to get her shampooed, and we're going to do everything wet, but just to talk a little bit about the design line. Whenever I go into design line, I'm really looking at a couple of features. One, I look at the brow bone to see how prominent it is, and hers is very soft. She also has an oval face shape, so I don't have to worry about building shape up too much. The second thing I look at is the density around the face, and fortunately for us, she has a lot of density around the face, but you can see where it gets a little bit skinny in through the recession line. So I just want to be careful that I'm not cutting too far into the recession line. And then the last thing that I always look at is the cheekbone and the jawline area. For Osley, we can actually get away with enhancing the cheekbone a little bit because you can see that the cheekbone comes up really high. So I don't really necessarily need to build that up. So for some people who have like a really prominent cheekbone, I wouldn't necessarily want to build that out more because it creates strength in an area that we don't necessarily want to. But because Osley's cheekbones are not as prominent, I can get away with just emphasizing that line. So I already know that I want the basic shape to fall and the weight right at that cheekbone. And then I want to kind of soften around through the face here. So I already have a mental picture in my mind that I'm going to go toward when it's wet. So we're actually going to get her shampooed right now, and we'll continue the cut in a second. So now we've got everything combed out, and I'm actually going to be going into quadrants here. And I'm going to be cutting almost like from the very center. I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 quadrants kind of on a pivot rotation from the top of the head. Everything is starting kind of where that comb is taking off from the top of the head here. So you can kind of draw an invisible line from the top down to the bottom, and it just happens to fall right in front of the ear. So I'm going to move everything else out of the way. From there, I am going to take it from the top of the head to 3/4 eyebrow. So that will be section 1. To the end of the eyebrow will be section 2. That will be a smaller section. And then section 3 will be even smaller than that, and that's going to be from the midsection to the cheekbone. And then the very last quadrant is going to be right in front of the ear, and that's going to be pretty straight down. So you can kind of see these pre-sectioned ahead of time. But again, this is a fairly organic process, and it will be different on one side of the head versus the other, and it will be different on every head shape as well, because everyone's hairline falls a little bit differently. So this is just the foundation for how we're going to be cutting. We're going to start out with quadrant 1. So I'm going to pull everything else out of the way, sectioning from the very top to 3/4 eyebrow on each side. I'm going to go right over the eye. So I am slightly over directing it, and I'm going to be starting right at the top of the lip, angling my scissors to the base of her chin. So I'm going to open my scissors up, and I'm going to gently close everything, walking down, and I'm not closing my shears all the way, I'm just walking down to the base of that chin. So there's that first piece, and you can kind of see where it wants to cup around the chin through there. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side before I move into quadrant 2. Again, I'm going to over direct everything to the front, right over the eye, opening the scissors right where that lip starts, and heading and walking it out toward the jawline. It's okay if you give yourself a little bit more wiggle room on the other side, because you can always take a little bit more off, but you can't add it back on unless you want to go into extensions. So we're just going to go ahead and take our time and trace back over that one more time. And I want to make sure that I'm still keeping the angle of my shear the same. I'm just going to walk it out a little bit closer in to the end to make sure that we're caught up. Now that quadrant 1 is done, I'm going to bring in quadrant 2. And remember, that is starting at the very top through here where I did an invisible trace. And if it's easier for you, you can do the same thing on both sides, where you take the top of the comb and you draw everything right to the front of the ear. That way you know that you're playing around in the same zone on each side. The second quadrant is going to start right at the top of the head, and I'm now pivoting everything to the edge of the eyebrow. So top of the head to the edge of the eyebrow. Everything's going to get pushed back this way. And this is where the angle is going to change. Instead of bringing everything forward like I did my previous section, now everything is going to be going to the base of the jaw. So at the base of the jaw, I'm going to bring everything down, and we're kind of meeting at the base of the jaw here. My scissors are going to be actually pointed down now. So instead of angling it, I'm going to be pointing it down from the base of the jaw and walking that out as well. And you can see that I'm not entirely closing my shears down. So I'm going to do that on both sides there. This is going to be a much skinnier, kind of having more of the petals and the openness, where it's going to be a little bit lighter and more textured through those pieces there. Same thing here at the top of the head to the very edge of the eyebrow, getting the rest of the hair out of the way. Everything is being drawn to the jawline. And you can see my old sectioning where everything was kind of angled at a 45 degree. I'm now changing the angle of my shears to drop straight down, and I'm going to walk that out. And just really taking my time with this part. Sometimes it's easier to hold the head to the side rather than cutting straight into the person's body. So if that is the case, then I would just say resection and just grab that section one more time and try again. There we go. Third quadrant, remember we are going from the top of the head right to the hairline. Through here, that's coming out, and the remainder is the hair that's right in front of the ear. So I'm gonna take this quadrant now, and remember, every single time it's being over-directed, less over-directed, less over-directed, and then no over-direction. So with this section here, I'm gonna be pulling it straight from where it lives. I'm gonna grab this hair through here, straight from where it lives. So I'm gonna comb this down through here, and you can see some of those pieces that are kind of falling out from that previous section. And when I'm taking it straight from where it lives, I'm gonna start a little bit higher. So see how this framing is longer? I'm gonna start a little bit higher where it's gonna kind of mimic exactly what I was doing before. But I'm still making sure my scissors are pointed straight in toward the ground as I'm walking it out. You can see here where there's a little bit more length, whereas through here, it gets much skinnier toward the bottom. So these little petaling pieces is exactly what we're going for with this type of cut, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, I'm gonna go from the top of the head to the hairline. This is gonna come straight down. I'm gonna recalibrate, turn the head to the side. I'm gonna find my footing here. So this is where the old layering was coming from. And I'm gonna go a bit higher. I'm going just a little bit higher than where those pieces were, and I'm gonna start right through here. Again, my shears are pointed straight into the ground as I'm doing this. And now you have a little bit more length. Let's make sure that those match up before I move on to my very last quadrant. Last section is the fourth quadrant. Again, I'm gonna turn the head even more, and I'm gonna get all of that hair that's right in front of the ear. I'm gonna push everything else behind it out of the way. This is no over direction. I'm gonna take all of this hair and bring it straight down from the top of where it lives all the way to the bottom. You can see all this extra hair through here. You can see exactly where that petaling was happening through there. So I'm gonna kick that out of the way. And I'm gonna start a little bit higher up once again, and I'm just gonna start walking it straight down to that section. And notice how I shy away from taking too much off the length because I don't wanna wipe this out yet. I wanna leave it there for now and decide later on what I wanna do with it. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. I'll turn her head, take that very last section from the top, drag everything straight down. I see my old framing. I'm gonna kick that out of the way so I don't get distracted by it. I'm gonna go a bit higher than that, and I already know where I'm ending, so I wanna make sure that I'm slide cutting, and I essentially don't cut anything off the length yet. The one last thing I want to do before moving forward is I just want to make sure there's a connection between both sides. So I'm just going to take the very middle triangle piece right where that fringe started. Once I form that triangle, I'm going to bring everything straight down over the top of the lip and just make sure that this feels balanced. It's a little bit heavier on this side, so I'm going to point cut into it just to make sure that that feels balanced. Okay, now we're going to move on with the rest of the cut. Now we're ready to get into her layering. I'm actually going to be bringing everything from the front and bringing it straight up. So I'm cutting 3/4 eyebrow to 3/4 eyebrow on the top, using the front as a guide. So the front is going to be the shortest piece and the back will be the longest piece. So I'm cutting short to long. When I'm cutting short to long, I'm going to be looking at not the fringe, but the longer piece that falls forward. This is the part right here where the comb comes off the head. This is that point of rotation in the front. This is the piece that is going to dictate where that length is going to be the shortest. So we're starting here. So it might help you to not get distracted by keeping this part of the hair out for now, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But the rest of the length is going to be at the very back, right at the top of the crown. And so what I'm ideally doing is the top of the crown through here will be higher. So I'm cutting short to long through here. So let's go ahead and just take a clean section, and I'm going to actually take some of this hair out of the way around the front that I already know filters out where that comb falls off the head. So I'm going to just take this out of the equation for now. And I'm going to go off of her center part since that's where she's typically parting her hair. And I'm going to take 2 finger widths wide, pushing my comb, pinching, preparing. And I'm going to pull everything straight up in the air. And as I pull it straight up, you can see where those layers are starting to fall out. And there's where my short to long is going to fall. It's easier for me when I'm cutting short to long rather than cutting in toward my hand to reverse my body. So I'm actually going to turn my body around this way through here, and I'm going to start cutting short to long here. And there they are. So this is my beginning layer. I'm going to cut through here, and I'm going to continue to readjust, pick up my section again, and one more time. And there it is. As my starting layer, that actually gets rotated along the entire top of the head. So I'm actually going to use that piece as my starting guide. Everything is getting cut from the top, and we're working our way down rather than pinning the hair up. So because of that, I'm going to be cutting on the vertical. So we're going to see panels that are vertical that start to rotate along the head where we have a pivot through here and along each side. I'm going to be taking this section from the very top, bringing it straight up through that point of rotation, again, where the roundest part of the head is. And I'm going to be exiting the head. So my fingers are pointing away from the head, and I'm cutting this off. So this is exterior. By cutting this out, I have nice light layers, but I'm still retaining length by doing it this way. So by cutting exterior on the vertical, it's going to fall nice and soft, and it's going to blend in. As we do this part, because it's cut short to long, that is a guide that continues to move. So as a guide moves, your picking up point is going to get longer and longer, and that's totally normal. That's what you want to see happen. As I'm rotating around the head, those pieces get slightly longer and longer every time. So you're going to see that I'm cutting less and less hair off. This is totally normal, and this is exactly what you want for a short to long cut. Okay, now we're gonna go into the sides of the head. We finished the top, we finished this highest rotation, and now we're going into the very sides of the head. This is where I'm gonna take the entire section through here. I'm gonna bring everything straight up, and the reason why I wanna over direct it up is because I want to retain length. But because I know I'm working with a lot of length here, I'm actually not gonna over direct it all the way up through here. I'm gonna actually over direct it to that point of rotation that we were talking about before. So I'm gonna take the entire side section, bring it up to that point of rotation, and anytime you have to question it, just look exactly where that rotation is and where your hand is positioned. And the last part of it, I'm gonna actually bring my fingers out, and I'm only cutting this little bit off. So if it feels like very little hair, then you're doing it right. Again, I'm gonna bring everything straight up through here, find that point of rotation, and then take my fingers, exit out of the head, and I'm gonna finish the remainder of that design line from exterior to the ends of the hair. And I'm gonna do that all the way around the head. So I'm gonna continue to pinch, prepare, pull, exterior, and cut. Once I'm done with one side, right to the top of the ear, I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side, and we're gonna cut the back just a little differently so we can take a little bit more weight out. When it comes to the front of the head, I wanna preserve as much length as possible. So I'm gonna take this section up through here and do exactly what I did before, bring everything straight up in the air, mimic the rotation of the head, point my fingers out, and carry that exterior line through. And I'm gonna do that one more time, just to the top of the ear, bringing everything straight up to the point of rotation, push my fingers out, find my shape from before, and continue that on. Now we're in the back of the head, and there's a lot more hair back through here, so I have a lot more to play around with. So I'm actually gonna take my sections vertically, starting from the very back of the ear, pull it out straight from where it lives, and I'm gonna push it exterior through here. So I get to take out quite a bit more length through here. And I'm gonna do this all along from one side of the ear to the other in the back of the head. Straight out, fingers pointed out, and cut that out.
It's been falling, I've been stalling for weeks. The stars are pretty when the sky falls.
Whenever you're doing the sides, it's important to redefine your line. So I actually like to redefine that design line right where the ear is and make sure that I'm not dragging this forward, because if you do that, you'll end up wiping out the hairline in the front. There's one last thing I want to do for this cut, and that is connecting everything. So I will be dragging everything straight up from the front to the top of the head, straight back, and I'm gonna bring everything straight up and make sure everything's connected. That's pretty good, actually. There's not much to take off through there, and that's probably a good sign. We don't wanna have to take too much off. But what this does is it connects one side to the other, so that way if she does end up changing her part line, everything is connected in together. I love the way the shape is looking already when it's wet, so we're gonna go ahead and dry it now. All right, so there you have it, the easy curtain fringe, nice and soft. This is something that you can definitely customize for every hair, but if you follow those exact same lines, doing the quadrants, taking your time, use the SilkCut Pros. I will put the rest of the information down in the show notes so you can find that easily. And thanks so much for hanging out. I'll see you soon.